useful. So we'll talk about the implementation part, administration part, implementation part we'll be talking about in this session. So it's a on-tab cluster admin session. So in this on-tab cluster admin, I'll be talking about cluster part. So how the Netapp cluster works. So I'll talk about clearly, I'll make you understand how the Netapp cluster works. So we'll also see the cluster setup. So how you can create a cluster. So I'll show you practically the cluster, how you can bring up the cluster, how you can add the node to the cluster. I'll talk about that. Then I'll talk about initial configuration. So once the cluster is created, so initially, once the new system, let's assume you are installed the OS, right? Once if you install a OS, what is there? So default administration account will be there. So OS is installed. Then later on, you need to add a license. How you want, you need to create user account, everything, right? Similarly, cluster, you need to create cluster. So I'll talk about cluster creation. Once the cluster is created, then initial configuration. So maybe I have an admin account. Everybody, we can't give an admin privilege. Say I'll talk about user creation, how you can create a multiple user, how you can give the permissions. So like a RBAC, role based on access list. Even you can do what restriction with the commands. So maybe one admin, I'm giving a backup role. He's having a permission of to take the backup. In that also, I'll give the restrictions for command. There is a commodities. So, and I'll talk about license cluster. Without license cluster will not work. I'll talk about the license part. So you can do what cluster management I'll talk about. And policies will create a policy. So those things I'll talk about this session. So in the model. Then I'll talk about networking concept. Network is very, very important. So cluster is created, but the customer need to send the request, right? Read, write request. They need to write the data. So first networking, the networking is very important. I'll talk about the network. There is a two kinds of network. One is physical network. One more is logical network. I'll talk about physical and logical networks. Physical is, I'll talk about controller. I'll talk about the ports. So what are all the ports available in the controller? So in case in the port wise, if you want to improve the performance, if you want to provide a protection, I'll talk about that. And there is a segregation in network. So a traffic segregation, I'll talk about the traffic segregation. I'll talk about logical network. So it is very, very important. Logical network is very important in the cluster. So clearly I'll explain how the logical network works. Then I'll talk about physical storage.
It's a logical network. You are going to cover lifts and all, right?
Exactly. Lift policies based on that failure concept.
Yeah.
Failure concept will work based on policy. What are all the policies available? In which lift, which policy is configured? So those things I'll talk about. Okay. And physical, see, those who are new to this Netapp, just listen the terms. Each and everything I'll explain how it works and what happens. Everything I'll explain. Now in the cluster, main thing is storage. Customer is asking for space. How you will provide a space? These are all cluster creation I talked about. Cluster creation, connectivity part, networking concept, everything. How you will provide a space? That's what I'll talk about here, physical storage. So physical storage is nothing but the disk. Say directly I can't provide a disk to the customer. So what I'll do is, so suppose if I have a 1 TB disk, I have a multiple 1 TB disk. The customer have a requirement of some TBs of space, maybe 5 TB, 10 TB. I need to do what? I need to logically group the physical disk. So logical grouping of physical disk. I'll create a aggregate. Aggregate is nothing but physical disk. Logically, I'm going to group. So again, aggregate, it's a physical disk. So I can't provide aggregate to the customer. Then we'll do what? We'll create logical space. Logical storage. It's nothing but in your hard disk. See, directly in your system, you have a hard disk, right? Directly, are you going to store the data in the disk?
No, we do partition and
Exactly. So that's nothing but volume, right? We'll create a volume. C drive, B drive. Similarly here, physical disk, I'll do what? I'll create logical space. It's nothing but volume. I'll create a volume. Here we have multiple types of volume. So one is flexible volume, flex group volume, flex cache volume, flex clone volume. I'll talk about these things. So what is the benefit if you go with the flex group volume or flex cache volume or clone volume? So normally if you create, it's a flexible volume. So what is that flexibility? What is flexible? I'll talk about those things. So volume, once if you create a volume, okay, physical space, using a physical space will do what? Logical space will create volume. Then we'll do what? We need to provide for customer. I'll talk about data access. See, now I have a customer, some customer, they want to access a space like a file. Some customer, they need to access like a block. Some customer, object. Some customer, they want a space like a file. We have a storage NAS. I'll talk about the NAS. Some customer, they need to access a space like a drive. We have SAN. I'll talk about the SAN. So some customer, they need to access a space through on the browser, HTTP, HTTPS. We have object storage. I'll do what? I'll create a bucket using S3. So create a bucket, provide access. I'll talk about those things. Okay, once if you do what? Create a volume, either assign the protocol, NAS or SAN. So you share the volume or export the volume or create a LUN map that one or create a bucket, provide access through one browser. I'll talk about those things.
Here
So,
you
sorry,
are going to
Mamta,
cover the
sorry to interrupt. Are you going to teach about cloud volume on tap and FSX on tap FSX also?
Yeah, cloud volume on tap, there's a separate training because that the lab setup, everything is different. So entire theory part is totally different.
Okay, okay.
So that is a separate training because in if you see the courses, if you see the cluster admin, if I talk about cluster admin, it will take a lot of time to explain how the cluster works in NetApp. Again, CVO totally different. So that's what that's a separate course.
Okay, so you take the course, cloud volume and all?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Okay, then I'll talk about what once if you provide a space, user will do what? User will start writing the data. So they'll write the data, they'll modify, so delete. Okay, as
You
a
do cover shares also, right? Ships and NFS shares and all
yeah,
this.
that is what I'll talk about in NAS.
Huh.
NAS, I'll talk about in the case of file. So Windows user on Unix client machine, how you will provide access to the volume, Unix client machine. I'll talk about those things. So for Windows guys, we'll do the share. We'll assign the protocol CIFS. So for Unix, we need to export. So the protocol NFS. I'll talk about that. But if you ask me CIFS, NFS, again, there is a lot of things, the permissions, and we have a protection, then troubleshooting and performance. So a lot of things to discuss. But here it is in implementation part. I'll talk about the permissions, everything, but not in depth. We have a separate course. Again, I want a lot of time to discuss. So there is another course we have. Okay, then once the data is stored, the customer is thinking data is safe. But there will be a lot of failure, right? Maybe disk may get failed or sometime volume, you are providing a volume. So volume failure or maybe controller fails. There is a lot of issues. How you are protecting the data? See, end of the day, if you see, the data will be storing in disk. If the disk fails, how you will get back the data? So that's what we'll talk about data protection. So I'll talk about disk level protection, control level protection, volume level protection, disk shelf level protection, then data protection. Then I'll talk about, see, as a storage admin, always you'll think about the space, right? So space is money. Now, how you'll make utilize of the space? We have a multiple option, thin provision, thick provision, thin and thick provision, and we have a deduplication. We have compression, compaction. So those things I'll be talking about. We'll talk about storage efficiency. Then I'll talk about Maintenance. See, cluster is ready. You are managing cluster, networking, and you are creating a space. You are providing a space. You are creating a volume. You are doing share export. User started writing a data. You are managing this space. You are protecting the data. Let's assume something goes wrong. How you will manage? Maybe your disk failure, or maybe your volume fails, or maybe the environment failure, controller fails. How you will manage how you will manage the cluster? So we have a multiple tool to manage the cluster management. So I'll talk about that multiple tools. So we have a for the based on best practice, the cluster you need to create. We have a separate tool, and you need to check it out entire logs. There is a performance impact. Let's assume in case of performance impact, always they'll pointing out to the storage team. So how you will identify all the log? How you will manage the performance impact? There's a separate tool, and you have a multiple cluster you need to manage. We have a separate tool. So you have a CVO, you have a cloud, and you have on-prem. So in the physical storage. So you need to manage. I have a single tool. There is an option of single tool. Using that tool, you can manage. There is a multiple tools available. I'll talk about that. So this is in the cluster maintenance. So this is about the cluster admin course. What and all I'll cover.
Okay, what about the snapshots and replications
Everything I'll talk about here in the data protection.
in data protections?
Yeah, I'll talk about disk level protection. I'll talk
Mhm.
about control level protection. I'll talk
Mhm.
about volume level protection. It's nothing but snapshot.
Okay, and metro cluster also?
No. In data protection, see, if you talk about again data protection, again we have a lot of things to discuss. If I talk about Snap Mirror, if I talk about Snap Vault, in Snap Mirror we have multiple types of Snap Mirror.
Mhm.
So again, it is a separate course. We have a 2 days course. So for the data protection. So what I'll do is how much it is possible to cover in this course, I'll cover that.
Okay.
Case of Snap Mirror or Snap Vault. I can't type all the types of Snap Mirror here in this course.
Okay.
So I'll talk about generally how the Snap Mirror works. I'll talk about Snap Vault, how it works.
Mhm.
Metro cluster, it is, again, we have a separate course for this 2 days metro cluster. The connectivity part is different.
Mhm.
And the theory part is totally different. I required like a separate course for the metro cluster. Just
Okay.
I can give you overview.
What
Yeah.
about the migration for the new device,
No,
old device, new device data migration?
see,
One and the first, not.
everything is a separate course. That's all. Again, it will take time.
Mhm.
If you talk about day wise, we required 2 days
Mhm.
to explain.
Okay.
Okay, if you wish to continue to those classes also, like as you
Right.
said, like micro cluster
No
migration.
problem. First, we'll finish off how the cluster works.
Yeah.
Then you decide. I'll tell you a lot of course, what and all the course available. Which are the course you are wish, you can.
Okay, will you teach that backup configuration to the storage?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is data protection you're talking about, Snap Mirror, Snap Vault. And metro cluster overview.
Mhm.
Business continuity we have. Sync replication we have.
Mhm.
These are all in data protection. There is
Means I'm asking because some backup tools is there, right? Net backup, vMind.
that is a no. That is a VMac or the tools and all we will not cover here.
Mhm.
Okay.
No, you have separate class for that. Now to configure
But
this storage to
I don't take those tools classes, but whatever in Netapp they are introducing the tools I can take up that.
That's
I'll
why
not.
okay, that is why I'm asking. Okay, if
Ah.
NetApp are directly configured to the commode, so what
Yes.
type of administration we need to do that time? Because some enterprises maintain a direct backup, right, using commode and VMs.
Exactly.
And
So
Mumta,
what
how
about
about on
upgradation,
the
on-tap upgrades?
Sorry.
On-tap upgrades.
Upgrade again, just an overview kind of thing I'll talk about. So how you need to use upgrade advisor. The document, if you want, I can provide.
Okay, for all these, like, do you have a lab setup in order to create the mirroring? Do
Yeah,
this
I'll tell you.
things and
I'll tell you how to access the lab. Since you are working, right? I'll tell
Yeah.
you how to access the lab.
And also one
You can
question.
download the simulation. You can install.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and also one question. Okay, you're always telling some it is covered in separate class, right? Can you mention what are the topics in covered in separate class so we can
Yeah, correct.
plan accordingly for
In
that?
this NAS, we have a separate course. In that
Mhm.
CFS, if you talk about day wise, there's a 2 days required to
Mhm.
explain. And if I talk about NFS, there is again 2 days is required.
Mhm.
And SAN part, it's a 3 days or 5 days
Mhm.
required. So like that.
Okay, in that including all the troubleshooting method and some scenarios, 10 to real-time scenarios.
Yes. And even, performance and troubleshooting, it's a separate course. What I normally I'll plan is while explaining your cluster admin itself, some places I'll cover the performance.
Mhm.
So again, if you talk me in depth the performance and all, we have to go with the separate course. But I'll cover some of the whichever the performance related the information I want to give in the course itself, I'll give that. And even troubleshooting also same thing. See the troubleshooting, generic troubleshooting I'll cover in this, but actually we have a separate course for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, also please share those like concept, what are all there in the separate course.
Yes,
So
what are you have
There is
so
a
we can
list,
plan accordingly for it.
Rupa, there is a list. So I told you, Metro cluster separate course, CVO separate course, and we have there is a Blue XP. I'll talk about a separate course. Data protection is a separate course. Performance is a separate course. Here I'll just talk about the tools. Separate course we have. And if you ask me, I told you NFS, CFS, they're all separate course. And I'll tell you tools, right? The tools also there is a separate course. So I'll talk about
This means you're conducting basic just
basic
it's
in
a
the
overview just.
no. This is those who are new to this NetApp, right? For them, the course is useful. So here itself, it will take lot of hours of the classes. Lot of things is there. How the NetApp, ONTAP works. Without this, you can't jump into any other course. So those who are new to NetApp, this course is very useful for them. They'll not come to know the basic one. If they ask me SVM, what is SVM, root volume, you need to
yeah.
understand a lot of things we have. So if you enter to this course, clearly you will understand.
Okay, after that we can go to like whatever we
Any
want,
course.
like metro cluster and the
Of
data
course.
cluster.
See,
Right.
each and everything I'll talk about here. So how the internally the ONTAP will work. So
Mhm.
later on, even you go with the docs.netapp.com, the documents if you download,
Okay.
you can easily understand how it works.
Okay. Those courses also conducted by you only, or those are taken by someone else?
I don't know, need to check.
Okay.
Actually, what is the duration of this course? You are
If
taking on this
you
side.
ask me the day wise, it will take 5 days.
Okay.
Entire
So
course.
I'll planning within. So how you will join the course based on that I'll plan. 8 hours. If you ask me 8 hours, it will take completely 5 days.
No, we guys are working actually, so
That
it
is the
is.
reason. That is the reason.
Yeah.
Early, if you take, I don't want to tell you. 1 month, within 1 month or 2 months, I'll cover. I don't want to tell you because you need to clearly understand. You need to work on this.
Yeah.
That's the reason I
Weekend
told.
it will be good, right? Guys, please respond. So we are
So we'll
working so
see
that.
those are enrolling, right? So once we'll take first class and second class, we'll come to know. So
Mm.
their availability and all. From there,
Mm.
it's flexible. For me, it's like a flexible. Whenever you are free, we'll sit and start the session.
Yeah, weekend would be like fine for us since we are working.
Okay, no problem.
Yes.
We'll decide. We'll discuss. So
Yes,
those are
weekend will be
enrolling and
okay.
those are.
Weekend you can extend for 2-3 hours.
2 3 hours, yeah.
That also will be good.
So that is what I can't give you the month wise how many classes I'll cover. So we don't want that. Clearly, you understand how you want. Will understand that. Then we'll decide. We'll take some time. It is dragging for after 1 month also. No problem. So
Hmm.
only thing is you need to clearly understand the concept.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the main agenda for you
Yeah,
and us also. Yeah, need to understand.
that's what I can't tell the duration. Sometime it happens if I say tell only 30 hours, 40 hours. I don't want to tell like that. So
Yeah.
understand the concept, clear it off. If it is taking 10 more hours extra, no problem.
Okay, in the tools, what are the tools in the cover? Is ActiveIQ configurations, Ocom, and ETCTs.
Yeah,
OCL.
See, here I told you, the tools we have a separate course. OCOM we have a separate course. OCI we have a separate course, and we have a Snap Center separate course.
Great.
Storage Grid separate course. So this is just a generic. If you understand this, you split out and you just go with that. In case if you want to study your own, you go with the docs.netapp.com. The documents available. You can study yourself. Then you can also attend the training. This is like a basic. Once if you understand this clearly.
Yeah, correct. Then we can go for those tools.
Yeah. Yes. Or else you can attend the session also. Anybody?
How about labs for these, whatever you explained right now, Mamta? So how we will give the stimulation labs for
We'll see
us to
how
do?
it is. How I can arrange. Sometime what happens, you guys have a lab access. So I'll make you to access. Otherwise, I'll give you the simulator. You can install in your system. So you can work on that.
Yeah. Because if you attend any interviews, so they will ask for only scenario. Theory, they won't ask. That's the reason.
Definitely, I'll agree.
Yeah.
We'll plan it, that lab part.
Okay.
I may give you the simulator. You can access it. You can install in your system. You can work on that. Or
Okay.
sometimes you guys have the access on lab. I'll provide you that.
Yeah.
Okay. So no questions, right?
And this is what clear because you are covering the basics things like overview, how exactly the NetApp from the scratch is working, right?
Yes.
It works exactly.
We'll go from the basic level, from the scratch.
Yeah.
See, always the basic is very important.
Yeah, correct.
So if I don't want to talk in between and see, again, you have to attend all the courses. For me is what I'll plan is, so I'll talk about from the scratch. In case if you want to go with expertise or anything, you can sit and you can study or you can go through on that guide, the documents. So you have to understand how it works.
Yeah.
So in that level, I'll go with the basic. I'll talk about the on-tab, how it works.
Mamta,
document.
what about Flash group? What it is exactly? Flash group?
I'll tell you.
No, just
So-
brief. I want to know.
So flex group you are asking, right?
Yes.
So in the aggregate, normally what happens, when you create a volume, see if I talk about disk, right, in our system,
Yes.
you create a volume in that one particular disk, you are creating a volume, right? Suppose if I told you aggregate is what? Logical grouping of multiple physical disks. Okay, when you create a volume, using the aggregate, you'll create a volume, one aggregate. But sometime where there is a big customer, they want huge space. So using a one aggregate, it's not sufficient, or you may face a
Okay.
performance impact also.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, what about your L3 level of training? When you are going to start? Because this is the basic. So we basically have worked for a long time in NetApp.
Okay.
So that's why we are expecting more at architect level of training. So where
Yes, my side also same query because we already completed 4.5 to 5 years in the
Okay.
NetApp. So we
Okay.
should be expert in the NetApp L3 level.
Okay.
So can
See,
you
this is
suggest?
also, the on-top is for even expertise. I've trained architect level, level 3 level. So they doesn't know most of the concept, Kumar. So in the on-top, you can sit and you can cover, understand those things. Or if you want expertise level, you have to attend the troubleshooting course.
Yes, you can
Performance and
suggest for
troubleshoot.
that.
Yeah. Performance and troubleshoot course.
So that will be connected by you only? Performance and troubleshooting course?
Yeah, but I also need to have time, no? So I'll be back to back, I'll be in this session. We'll see.
Okay.
Any other questions? So I'll just we'll talk about the basic. So DAS storage.
Yes, direct attached storage.
right? Direct
Traditional,
attached storage.
traditional way of doing
Exactly.
storage.
So earlier days we had this DAS. So every server you have a one storage box. If I have a multiple server, you need to have multiple DAS. Tell me who will manage this? If I have a multiple server, I have a multiple storage. As a storage admin, you need to manage this, right? Multiple storage box. In case the storage failure,
Yeah, we are going to lose the data.
again, yeah, right? That is the reason what they have done. They have come up with centralized storage, SAN. So I have a storage and there is a redundancy. In case one box fails, we have another box. Now I have multiple hosts. So these hosts, the customer, they want to access the space like a drive. So we'll do what? We'll connect to the SAN storage. From the storage end, the space I said, no, aggregate I said, right? So from the storage, they'll do what? They'll create a LUN. But here the host, they need to access the space like a drive. So LUN, they'll map to the host. So using a protocol, iSCSI, RFC, OE. Nowadays we have NVMe. Using that, they'll do what? They'll map the LUN to the host. Host, they can access the space like a drive. Now, some customer, they want space like a file. So they have come up with NAS storage. Again, storage box, redundancy purpose, we have one more storage. So we'll connect the host. So maybe there is a Windows guy. So they need to access the space, or unique client machine. They need to access the space. So from the storage end, we'll do what? From the storage end, we'll create volume. So Windows guy, they need to access the space like a file. So from the storage end, we'll have a protocol, SMB, or we call as CIFS. Using that, we'll do what? We'll share the volume. So they'll access the space like a drive. Similarly, Unix, create a volume, we'll have a protocol NFS. Once you add a protocol NFS, we'll have an export option. So you export this volume, you can access the volume like a directory. So they'll mount the directory, they'll access the space. Now some customer, they want SAN as well as NAS. So we need to buy a NAS storage separately, need to buy a SAN storage separately. There is a separate team to manage the SAN, separate team to manage NAS. So some customer, they want SAN as well as NAS. So we have to go with two storage. That is the reason what Netapp has done. Netapp has come up with unified storage. Unified storage, that is, you can achieve what? NAS as well as SAN also. Nowadays, we have object store as well. In a one box. Again, we have redundancy. Multiple volume. One is for Windows guy. It is a Unix client machine. Or one more is SAN host. One more is maybe S3 buckets. So create your volume. Either do share export or you create a S3 bucket, provide access to the user. For SAN scenario, create a LUN. Map that LUN to the host. This is the unified storage. The first unified storage introduced by Netapp. So after that, everybody they started their own unified storage. If you talk about unified storage, what is the OS they'll use? They'll use data on tap. The OS is data on tap. In this data on tap, there is a two mode. One is 7 mode. One more is cluster. Kumar, have you worked on 7 mode?
No.
Okay, 7 mode and cluster mode.
Yeah.
So the last version is 8.3.
Yes.
This is also 8.3. There is no modification, there is no implementation, nothing. So after that, what Netapp has done, they have come up with the they have implemented only the cluster. They have come up with on tap. There is no data on tap now. Only it's on tap. They started with 9. So from the on tap 9, you can connect to the cloud. So you can, from the on-prem, you can move a data to the cloud, private cloud to public cloud, or from the on-prem to the cloud, you can start moving data. The only modification for cluster 7 mode, already end of life. So even from the Netapp end, there is no support for the 7 mode. Everybody has to, already they have migrated to cluster mode. So still I have seen so many are using 7 mode, but there is no support from the Netapp end. So Netapp on tab, we have a multiple version. 9, 9.1, 9.2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So like that we have up to 15. 15 is released. So still that certification is going for 9.12. Okay, and where we can install this on tap, we do have flexibility from the Netapp end. Suppose if you have a hardware, if I talk about hardware, we have fast controller appliance. We have a all flash pass, all SAN array. So we can install on tap. Or even you can go with the converged infra. Have you heard about in one rack, you have a storage, compute, and network?
Yes.
HCI, yeah.
There also we can install on tap. Even still we have a flexibility. Suppose I don't want to go with appliance, but we want to achieve the cluster. Yes, we have a software based on solution.
So, like, when we talk about hyperconverged, so what will be the hardware of which vendor?
No, this is, I'm talking about hardware. Hardware is from the on-tap end. You can go with fast controller, all flash pass, or the all SAN array. You can install on-tap.
Okay, install on tap on Netapp itself, these boxes.
Yes.
So on tap, so how we will integrate with hyperconverged?
See, that is totally different. We have a separate explanation for that. I'm just talking about on-tap where you can install. I said hardware, right? Which are all the
Yes.
hardware? The appliance I'm talking about. Fast controller, all flash pass, and all SAN array. Okay, if you come to software, suppose I have a system I need to convert like cluster. So we do have option. You download the on-tap, select the commodity hardware, install the on-tap. Up to 8 node, maximum 8 node cluster you can create using on-tap select. Okay, I don't want to buy a system again. I don't want to create a cluster. So we do have a solution. You can go to the cloud. So AWS or Azure or GCP. You can create cluster. Download CVO Cloud Volume on tap. In the cloud space, you create a cluster. You don't need to buy any hardware. So that flexibility we have. Even while creating a cluster, some of the controller you use a hardware or on tap select. You create a cluster. It is also possible.
So storage, what storage we will get when we install the on-tap in cloud?
The cloud, see, that is the cloud backend. What is they are using? You can't see that disk type, right? Whatever the disk type you will get, it's a software defined disk type you will get. Backend in the cloud, maybe they may use what SSD disk performance based on the space. If you want, they'll provide SSD disk, or if you want capacity based, they'll use maybe a HDD disk, right? Depends.
So like this, it's in suppose in AWS like EBS like this, that elastic block storage.
Yeah,
That
that is
disk.
also you can use a AWS. You can create a cluster. You can use Azure, you can use GCP, Azure, and AWS. Only these 3 clouds are supporting to create a cluster in ONTAP. You can deploy the CVO only in this 3 cloud right now. Okay.
Okay.
See, in this training, if you take cluster admin, normally will explain using fast controller, because in the fast controller, we can use a disk, multiple types of disk, either SATA disk or SAS disk or SSD disk. So we can create a multiple examples using the multiple types of disk. That is the reason in the training purpose we'll use a FC fast disk, fast controller. So, but later on in the last module, what I'll do is I'll explain the difference in the fast and all flash fast. Functionality, everything is same, but in all flash fast, the performance is really good compared to your fast controller. And what and all by default it is enabled in the all flash fast. I'll talk about that. So you have a separate course for software defined storage. On tap select, there is a separate course. Cloud volume on tap, there is a separate course.